Hey, this is Two Sheds Gabby. Today I want to talk specifically to you newer guys, or maybe to you brand new guys. We're going to talk about what you look for in your copper hoarding hunt, all the different things we find. One of the fun things about the pennies is when you get a box, there's so many different things that you look for, and you never go away empty-handed. There's always something in the boxes to keep, some good stuff that's worth more money today than they were, when they were minted, because the prices of copper are going up. Anyway, that's what we're doing. Stick around. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, for starters, what we're looking for is copper pennies from 1982, half of part of 1982 and newer. They're all zinc and they're not worth anything, and that's what this is. From 1982, the first part of 1982 and older is copper. Everything from 1901 and older, you don't have to worry about it. It's just copper. But if it was made in 1982, some of them are copper and some of them are zinc. And I would suggest you pick up one of these little scales. You can set it for grams, and you can get them for less than $10 on eBay or Amazon. And what you're looking for, the zinc ones are around they're 3.1 grams, but they'll be off a little bit sometimes. And the zinc ones are 2.5 grams. So this first row had an 82. Oh, my scale went off. And so we're going to see. There you go. This one is copper, so we'll save this one as part of our copper hoard. Okay, if you buy a box of pennies, you go to your bank and you ask if they've got a box of pennies. And if most of them are going to look like this, it's $25. There's 50 rolls in there. And this roll was pretty good. This is like 12 copper pennies, and that's pretty good for these days. What I like to look for in each box, and I feel like I'm pretty successful if I find this, is 3 pounds of copper and 10 wheat pennies. If I find that, I feel like I've had a pretty good box. And depending what region you're in, some people do better than that. Some people do a little less than that. But I average that pretty good. And so that's just what I suggest. That's my thing. You can have your thing. Some there In 1983, there was a few accidental copper planchets made on the old copper. They were supposed to be zinc, but they were made on the old copper planchets, and they're worth a lot of money if you find one. Some people say it's not worth your time to look. Some people say, hey, it don't take that long to look. Here's a 1983. It's zinc. They always have been for me. But if you find one, you probably pay your house off. So it's up to you if you want to look for it or not. But in your 50 rolls, if you average about 8.5 copper pennies per roll, that'll be your 3 pounds. This roll had 12. The Lincoln pennies were started in 1909, and they're made in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. And all the way up until 2016, if it had an S under it, it was San Francisco. If it had a D under it, it was Denver. If it had nothing under it, it was Philadelphia on the pennies. And for the first time in 2017, they put the P under it to represent Philadelphia. And so lots of people collect them, the 2017 P, for that reason. I saved maybe a roll of them, and I find so many of them. I find more of the 17 Ps than I do the Ds. So I don't keep them anymore because there's just so many out there. Some people say, well, I don't know why you're not saving those. I just don't anymore. You may want to. They are collectible to a lot of people. I do want to mention that just to let you know. You're going to need some good lighting and a good magnifier. This one has the light on it. I kind of like it. And it even has a more powerful one right here if you want to look at a couple of things closer up. If you really want to look at things close up, get you a Tom Love coin magnifier. You get super, super, super close. Some people like the mats. I do sell some on eBay. This is one of them that I sell. And this is another one that I sell. I've been using this one more lately. And I sell them on eBay. I'll put a link to it below. You certainly don't have to buy mine if you want one. There's other people that make them. People make them bigger than mine and more fancier than mine. You know, you just get what you like. But here's how I do it. I'll grab a roll and pop it open on the ends. And I unroll it, lay it out, and then I get it in a lot closer. I usually use my hand. I'm not right now. Anyway, then I'll even use my magnifier. And I'll get in there and look at each one. And I'm looking for the dates because my eyesight, I need glasses. You may not need the magnifier for this, but I'll look at each of the dates and I put the zinc over that way and the copper this way, and I'm looking for wheat pennies and other stuff that we'll talk about as the video goes on. I hope my lighting is good enough for you to see this. The pennies started way back. What we look for, you hardly ever find these. This is an Indian head penny. I did find this one just real recently, a 1901. They're amazing finding those. You don't find them very often, but they're really cool when you do. But mostly what we find is the Lincoln pennies, and they started making those in 1909. And they, in 1909 all the way up to 1958, they had this wheat on the back. These are called your wheat pennies. And those are really collectible. Us copper hoarders really like finding the wheat pennies. And we even sometimes have books that we fill. Let me grab mine over here. These are the main, these are the ones most people get, something like this. This one is 1909 to 1940, and this one's 1941 to 1974. But from 1959 all the way up to 74, they're the Jefferson Memorial back, not the wheat back. But anyway, it's fun to try to fill these books with the pennies you find hunting for the copper. We hoard the copper away for another day because they're worth about 3 cents each right now. Okay, let's go on. Starting in 1958, they started making the memorial penny, like these right here. And from 1958 to up until more than halfway through 1982, they were copper. And those are the ones we hoard right there. Keep these separate, your wheat pennies separate, because they're not worth a fortune, but they're worth more and they're way more collectible. So keep those separate. And then these are the ones that we hoard from 1959 to 1982. Be sure and get your scales to weigh all the 1982 ones, because you don't want mixing the zinc in with the copper. If you ever go to sell them, people won't like that at all, I tell you. In 2010, they started making the shield penny, and that's what this is a 2023 shield penny. So we missed a year, right? We missed from 1982 up to 2008. They're the memorial pennies, but they're zinc. And the only ones that are worth anything is if you get an error or something like that. In 2009, they made the Commemoratives, and that is a set. All of these are 2009, but they had 4 different reverses. It's the same front as the others, but they have 4 different reverses, all of them commemorating a different part of Lincoln's life. And that makes them collectible, but the thing that makes them even more collectible was we had a financial crunch in 2008, and because of that, they made way less of these 2009s than they had intended to. There's still a lot of them out there, but it's far, far, far less than, say, the 2008s and the 2010s. So these are pretty collectible. It's fun to find these. And it's especially fun to find them in really good condition. Zincs can get in really, really bad condition. So if you find some in nice condition, put them in a tube or something to protect them, to keep them that way. And then in 2010, they started doing the shield. The shield is also, how can I say? It's something to do with linking, preserving the Union. It's something about that. If you happen to find one of these shields that has a TG in it, standing for Two Sheds Gabby, that's me. Boy, you've really got something there. I'm kidding. I put that there myself. Now, I think it's really fun finding the Canadian pennies too. And the cool thing about the Canadian pennies is they made their copper pennies all the way up to 1996, whereas we quit making ours out of copper in 1982. Our copper ones are 95% copper, whereas the Canadians are 98% copper. There is some distinguishing things about that. From the 1997 and newer, they're not copper. They're up until 2000 or something. They've even changed the composition in the newer non-copper ones, but I'm not going to go into that right now. But from 1982 to 1996, they're 98% copper, but they're 12-sided. That's how you can recognize them. But somewhere along the way, they changed the head picture of the queen to a younger, to an older looking queen. But these are both 98% copper, the 12-sided. But as years went by, they made them a little bit lighter. These are 2.5 grams each. Now from 1980 and 1981, they're 98% copper, but those are 2.8 grams each. And they've got the maple leaf on the back. From 1952 to 1979, you had the queen on the front and the maple leaf on the back, except for the centennial year. And that's that one right there. But these are 3.24 grams. They're even heavier. Kind of cool. And so I look for these, and I keep them separate. I roll them up. You don't need to do that if you don't want to. It's just what I do. When I get 50 of this one, I'll roll it up and I'll mark it, same as this one and the same as these. Until I get it a full 50, I keep them in tubes. That's just the way I do it. You can do whatever you want. Right there. Now, they're basically considered hoarding coins, the same as our 1959 up to 1982. You can call them what you want, but that's what they're basically considered, is your copper hoarding. Before that, I don't have one out here, but before that, they had the King George pennies. Those are old, 1952 and older. Those you want to keep as collector coins. They have a numismatic value to them, and you find them every now and then. I've got a stack of them. They're fun to find. I've even got a book to keep those in. It's almost full. Pretty cool. That's what we look for, the Canadian. I keep all my... when I do find one that's newer, I'll just stack them up right here. I put my 2009s right there. But I've got a bag where I keep all of my Canadian, newer, what we call clad Canadian coins. I don't know why, I just keep them. I've got them put away. Probably $20 or $30 worth of Canadian coins in there. Anyway, that's it about the Canadian. As I go through each roll and I put aside the ones that I want to keep special, my copper coins I put in my little today's copper box, and all the zinc pennies I put over into the zinc box to take back to the bank to cash in for more pennies, whatever I want to do with them. And then I take these and I start filling up like a box like this. And when it gets to where it's 15 pounds, then I'll seal it up and tape it up real good. Let me show you over here. Oh, there's a bunch of boxes of them right there, and they're 15 pounds each, except for that one. That's the one I'm filling up right now. I've got about 150, 160 pounds for just this year. My goal is to get 260 pounds this year because that will give me a total of 500 pounds of copper pennies. And that's my goal to reach by the end of 2024. Some people keep them in buckets. Some people keep them in jars. If you keep them 5-gallon buckets, they weigh, golly, 300 and something pounds. Really hard to move around. I know people do it. That's your prerogative, but to me, that's too heavy to do. I started out down here putting them in $half-dollar boxes, and they each weigh 25 pounds. Even that's fairly heavy, but it's doable. But that's before this year. I had them like that, and then I started putting them in individual 1-pound bags for a few boxes. I may go back to that sometime, but for this year, I'm just putting them in each box 15 pounds, and hopefully I will get my 260 pounds for this year. On my mat here, you see where it says varieties. Some people are really, really, really into varieties. They have whole books out there on varieties, and there's just tons and tons and tons of knowledge about that. I don't look for that as much. If I see an obvious one, I keep it. Like sometimes you'll find one that was minted with a little chub piece of the side of the penny cut off. You can tell by the way it's shaped that it was at the mint and not afterwards. But those are really easy to see. I've got a couple of them. And the obvious ones I find. But my other mat shows some of the other varieties, the double die obverses, and so many different things. And this is a list of some of them. There's just thousands of them. These are some kind of the more widely known ones that people look for. And so this was the first penny mat. I've sold so many of these, just unbelievable amount of these. But I have gotten to where lately I just like using this one just for my personal searches. To each his own. Anyway, if you would get into the varieties, you're going to have to get way beyond me because I don't talk a lot about them. But there's lots of information out there, and they're worth money. It takes longer looking for them. You do find them sometimes. Some of them ain't worth much money. Some of them worth a lot of money. And if that's what you're into, that's great. Just understand ahead of time. It's a lot longer looking for those. But the rewards are sometimes big. You see here on this mat where it says extra fine. Sometimes I find some of the older copper pennies that are just in amazing condition. Just really, really super nice. And so I keep those aside. I don't put these along with the hoarding stuff. I keep these out separately. It's fun. I mean, this one is the 1977. So that's been around for quite a while to still be in that good a condition. So I just kind of keep those aside. You may or may not choose to do that. But I think it's pretty neat when you find one this old that is still in that great a condition. You see the dime on this penny mat. This is a little bit funny, but sometimes when you get these boxes of pennies, you'll find a dime in the roll. And I just think it's so funny, and I get a real kick out of that. So far this year in 2024, in my coin roll hunting for pennies, I have found 19 dimes so far. I just think that's a lot of fun. I have foreign on here, and sometimes I'll just put the newer Canadians that are not copper I'll put here, but sometimes you'll find a coin from Bermuda or the Bahamas or from who knows where. And it's always fun finding other foreign coins to me. I've got another box set aside that's just lots of foreign coins in it. If you check Coinstar machines, you might find a foreign coin in the coin return. At my bank, I always check the coin machine. A few of the banks I go to have coin machines where people can cash their coins in. And I check the returns on them, and I'll find foreign coins sometimes. A few of the branches that I go to, I've even asked them, and in fact, I went in a couple mornings ago. They said, "Oh, we've got something for you." and it was from France. Just one that somebody had left behind, and they saved it for me, and so that's a lot of fun. I like collecting the foreign coins too, and every now and then you get a silver one. Well, that should answer most everything. If you have another question, please feel free to ask it, and I will try to respond promptly. Thanks a bunch.